The emergency room doors burst open at 2:47 a.m., and what should have been the most beautiful night of a woman's life turned into a nightmare when the mistress showed up with one intention: to make sure she never made it out alive. The husband stood frozen in the corner while his pregnant wife screamed for help, blood spreading across the sterile white sheets. But what neither the husband nor his mistress knew was that the man's mother was already on her way, and when Patricia Bennett arrived, the entire city would learn what happens when you attack a billionaire's only daughter-in-law. Tell us what time you're watching this and where you're from in the comments below. Drop your thoughts, because this story will shake you to your core. He stood outside the delivery room at 2 a.m., phone vibrating with texts he couldn't answer. Not here. Not now. Not with his wife screaming his name from inside. Tyler Bennett had built an empire on calculated risks. Tonight, every lie he'd told for 18 months was about to detonate. Tyler Bennett had everything a man could dream of, except the courage to tell the truth to the two women carrying his children. Have you ever watched someone you thought you knew completely become a stranger? Someone whose smile hid secrets that could destroy lives? In Highland Park's most expensive mansion, behind charity galas and magazine covers, a tech billionaire was living two completely different realities. And the person who knew everything? She wasn't his wife. She wasn't his mistress. She was the one woman he never thought would turn against him. The Highland Park estate gleamed against the Dallas skyline, every window reflecting wealth most people only glimpsed in films. Inside the master bedroom, Tyler deleted texts faster than his pregnant wife could ask who kept calling at midnight. At 38, Tyler had built Bennett Tech Solutions from nothing, an AI security company that made him Dallas's golden boy. His mother, Patricia, a former school teacher from rural Oklahoma, had stood beside him through every struggle, every late night, every rejection. When Tyler married Nicole 3 years ago, a compassionate pediatric nurse from Houston he met at a charity gala, Patricia welcomed her like the daughter she never had. For 3 years, their lives looked perfect. Magazine covers, philanthropic work, and finally, after 2 heartbreaking miscarriages, Nicole's miracle pregnancy. But perfection was just lighting and camera angles. Nicole reached for him across Egyptian cotton sheets, her hand finding his shoulder. "Come to bed," she whispered, 7 months pregnant and still wanting him close. Tyler's phone buzzed again. He kissed her forehead, automatic, empty, and retreated to his office, closing the door on her confused expression and the life they'd built together. In his locked office, Tyler typed frantically to the other woman, the pregnant one, the one he'd been promising a future to for 18 months while his wife carried what should have been his only child. Vanessa Cruz wasn't just his business partner, she was his escape route, his alternate reality, the mother of what he believed was his first child, due the same month as Nicole's. He'd promised Vanessa he'd leave Nicole after the baby came. Told her his marriage was loveless. Told her Nicole didn't understand him. All lies. What would you do if you discovered your partner had been lying for 18 months? Would you confront them immediately or gather evidence first? Drop your answer below. Patricia stood in Tyler's home office doorway, watching her son frantically typing responses to someone who wasn't his wife. She'd seen the private investigator's report 3 weeks ago, bank statements, hotel receipts, prenatal appointments for another woman. But what Patricia discovered went beyond affair. It went into criminal territory, and tomorrow she would begin dismantling the empire she'd helped him build. Vanessa Cruz stood in her downtown penthouse, hand on her belly, staring at Tyler's latest text. "Can't make it tonight. Nicole's having contractions." She threw her phone across the room. 18 months of promises, and he was still choosing her. Have you ever been the other woman, believing you were the only woman? That the man you loved was trapped, not lying? Vanessa wasn't just Tyler's business partner. She was his escape, his future. the mother of what she believed was his first child. But every promise he made was built on a foundation that was already crumbling. Vanessa's penthouse overlooked downtown Dallas. Glass, steel, and million-dollar views that felt increasingly hollow. She decorated a nursery in soft blues, believing Tyler would move in after handling the divorce. The crib sat empty, waiting for a father who kept canceling visits. At 34, Vanessa had clawed her way up from Miami's startup scene to become a venture capitalist with connections to every power player in Texas. She was smart, beautiful, ruthless when she needed to be. Tyler had seemed like her golden ticket, wealthy, influential, unhappy in his marriage, or so he claimed. 3 weeks earlier, Tyler had shown up at midnight, stress pouring off him like cologne. They'd fallen into bed with the desperate intensity of people trying to outrun reality. Afterward, as he traced circles on her pregnant belly, he'd whispered, "Just a few more weeks. Then we start our real life." Vanessa had believed him. She'd memorized the weight of his promises, the heat of his skin, the way he said her name when Nicole wasn't listening. Now pacing her penthouse at 1 a.m., 8 months pregnant and alone, Vanessa dialed his number. He answered on the 5th ring, voice tight. "I can't talk right now." "When?" Vanessa demanded. "When do I stop being your secret?" Tyler's voice came back, tired, hollow. "Soon. I promise. Nicole's pregnancy is high risk. I can't..." "Can't what? Can't tell your wife about me, or can't tell me the truth about her?" Silence, then dial tone. Vanessa stood at her floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Dallas sleep below her. She'd been patient, understanding, accommodating, no more. She grabbed her laptop and Googled Baylor University Medical Center's private maternity suites. Found exactly what she needed: visiting hours, security protocols, and Tyler's reservation under his name. If he wouldn't choose her willingly, she'd force the choice. Can you sympathize with the other woman if she didn't know the full truth? Or is ignorance no excuse? Tell me where you stand. Vanessa made her decision that night. She'd drive to that hospital. She'd walk into that delivery room. She'd make Tyler choose, publicly, finally, irrevocably. She didn't know Patricia Bennett had been 3 steps ahead of her for weeks. The door to the delivery suite exploded open at 2:17 a.m. Vanessa Cruz stood there in a Chanel dress and running mascara, screaming words that stopped Nicole's contractions cold. "You lied to me? Have you ever had your worst nightmare walk through a door you thought was locked? The moment safety became danger, Nicole was 7 centimeters dilated when she learned her husband had another pregnant woman. And what happened next would prove that hell has no fury like a woman betrayed, especially when she's 8 months pregnant herself. The private birthing suite smelled of lavender diffusers and fear. Monitors beeped Nicole's elevated heart rate as contractions came in waves. Tyler stood by the window, phone hidden in his pocket, while Patricia held her daughter-in-law's trembling hand. None of them heard Vanessa bypass security using Tyler's guest authorization code. The $50,000 birthing suite, all luxury linens and soft lighting, transformed into a crime scene in seconds. Vanessa moved across the room like a storm in designer heels. Her eyes were wild, her pregnant belly visible under her dress, her voice climbing octaves that bounced off walls designed for peaceful births. "I'm having your baby in 2 weeks, Vanessa screamed at Tyler, pointing at her stomach. "You promised me divorce! You said she didn't matter!" Nicole's gaze swung to Tyler, who stood frozen, mouth opening and closing without sound. "Tyler?" Nicole's voice broke. "Tyler?" He said nothing. Patricia's phone recorded every silent second. Vanessa's hands reached for Nicole's IV line with terrifying precision. "If I can't have the life you stole, you don't get to keep it either." Security tackled her 3 feet from the bed, but not before Nicole saw the hatred in another pregnant woman's eyes. Hatred directed at her for loving a man who'd lied to them both. Nurses swarmed Nicole as her blood pressure spiked dangerously. The baby's heart rate dropped. Alarms shrieked. Doctors shouted orders. Tyler finally moved, reaching for his wife, but Patricia blocked him with one outstretched arm. "Don't," she said, voice colder than he'd ever heard. "You've done enough." 2 security guards dragged Vanessa backward, still screaming. 18 months, Tyler. 18 months you said you were leaving her. "The nursery is ready. The crib has his name on it." Nicole's world tilted. 18 months, while she'd been trying to carry this pregnancy after 2 miscarriages, while she'd been decorating their nursery, while she'd believed in their marriage. Could you ever forgive someone who put your life and your unborn child's life in danger? Where's the line between mistake and unforgivable? Share your truth. Doctors rushed Nicole toward emergency cesarean. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. The baby was in distress. As they wheeled her out, Nicole caught one last glimpse of Tyler standing paralyzed in the doorway, and Patricia making phone calls with a calm that was somehow more terrifying than Vanessa's screaming. As doctors rushed Nicole toward emergency cesarean and security dragged Vanessa away in handcuffs, Patricia made 3 phone calls, one to her lawyer, one to the SEC, one to every major news outlet in Texas. By sunrise, Tyler Bennett would lose everything. But first, Patricia would make sure Nicole and baby survived. Because revenge meant nothing if the innocent didn't live to see justice served. Madison Bennett entered the world at 3:42 a.m., screaming with the fury of a child who'd already survived her first fight. Nicole held her daughter and couldn't look at the man who'd helped create her. Some births are celebrated, some are survived. Have you ever experienced the most beautiful and most devastating moment simultaneously? Joy and grief occupying the same breath? Nicole became a mother in a room where trust had just been murdered. And the first person to hold Madison after Nicole? It wasn't Tyler. It was the mother-in-law who'd been planning his destruction for 3 weeks. The recovery room was quiet, except for Madison's tiny sounds and Nicole's ragged breathing. Morning light crept through blinds, painting everything in pale gold. Patricia held her granddaughter while Nicole slept, exhaustion finally claiming her after 36 hours of labor and a lifetime of trust destroyed in minutes. Madison weighed 6 pounds, 8 ounces. She had Tyler's dark hair and Nicole's nose, 10 tiny fingers that gripped Patricia's thumb with surprising strength. Nicole had dreamed of this moment for 3 years. Tyler's hands cradling their baby, his lips on her forehead, their family complete. Instead, she held Madison alone, memorizing her daughter's face while trying to forget her father's. When Madison's tiny fingers wrapped around Nicole's thumb, she made a silent vow. This child would never question her mother's strength or her father's absence. A knock at the door. Tyler appeared in the doorway, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes red, face hollowed out. "Can I—" "No," Nicole said, not looking up from Madison's face. "Please, just let me see—" "No." Patricia stood, placing herself between Tyler and the hospital bed. "Your daughter needs rest. Your wife needs space. You need to leave." "Mom—" Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper only Tyler could hear. "Leave now, or I call security and tell them what I know about Vanessa's consulting contracts. Your choice." Tyler's face went white. "Would you let your partner meet their child after this betrayal? Or does some trust, once broken, bar all access? Tell me your boundary." Tyler left. Outside the hospital, his phone buzzed. Vanessa calling from county jail, arrested for assault and something else the charges didn't specify yet. He ignored it. 2 women, 2 babies, and he'd destroyed them both. But what Tyler didn't know Vanessa's baby wasn't his. Patricia had DNA evidence, and tomorrow's press conference would reveal every lie he'd built his empire on. Patricia Bennett sat in her lawyer's office at 6 a.m., 3 hours after Madison's birth, organizing the destruction of her son's life with the same precision she'd once used to help him build it. Revenge isn't always hot-blooded. Sometimes it's ice-cold calculation spreadsheet by spreadsheet. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your child and punishing them? Between love that enables and love that disciplines? Patricia discovered Tyler's affair 3 weeks ago, but the affair was just the surface. What she found underneath would send Vanessa to prison and Tyler into ruin, and Patricia had been planning every revelation. 3 weeks earlier, Patricia had noticed the signs. Tyler distracted at family dinners, phone calls he'd take outside, credit card statements showing Miami hotels during business trips. She'd hired a private investigator. What came back shattered any remaining illusions. The private investigator's office smelled like old coffee and secrets. Patricia had sat across from a desk covered in proof that her son wasn't just unfaithful. He was a fool being conned by someone smarter and more ruthless. Vanessa Cruz's financial records spread before her like a map of deception. The consulting fees Bennett Tech paid Cruz Capital? The investigator tapped a spreadsheet. Fake services. The money routes through 3 shell companies before landing in Cayman accounts under Vanessa Cruz's mother's maiden name. $4.3 million over 14 months. Patricia's hands trembled. And the paternity? The investigator slid over a sealed envelope. Non-invasive prenatal test. Vanessa's carrying someone else's child. DNA match came back to a man in Miami. One she dated before your son. Patricia closed her eyes. Tyler was a cheater, but Vanessa was a con artist, and both would pay. Patricia thought about Tyler and Nicole's wedding night, how her son had looked at his bride like she was his entire universe. Somewhere between vows and betrayal, Tyler had traded real love for the illusion of it, traded a woman who saw his worth for one who saw his wallet. Patricia would make sure he understood the difference. "What do you want to do with this information?" the investigator asked. Patricia stood, gathering evidence into her briefcase. "I want to save my son by destroying everything he thinks matters. I want him to start over with nothing, like I did, like his father did. And I want the women he hurt to have justice. That's going to cost him everything." Patricia's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Good. That's the point. If you discovered your child was not only cheating but being scammed and endangering lives, would you expose them publicly or handle it privately? What does real parental love look like?" Patricia scheduled the press conference for 10 a.m., 7 hours after Madison's birth, before Tyler could mount any defense. She'd invited every news outlet in Texas, prepared statements, organized evidence packets, and coordinated with federal prosecutors. Tyler thought his worst night was the hospital confrontation. He had no idea his mother was about to teach him that consequences don't ask permission. They just arrive. Patricia Bennett walked to the podium at 10 a.m., 7 hours after her granddaughter's birth, carrying a briefcase that would destroy her son's empire before he'd even held his child. Every camera in Texas was trained on her face. A mother's love isn't always protection. Sometimes it's the hardest lesson you'll ever teach. Have you ever had to publicly expose someone you love to save them from themselves? To choose justice over loyalty? Patricia didn't walk to that microphone as Tyler's defender. She walked there as Nicole's avenger. And what she was about to reveal would prove that some betrayals run deeper than affairs. They run into criminal territory. The Bennett Foundation conference room held 30 reporters, twice that many cameras, and one woman who'd spent 3 weeks preparing to dismantle everything she'd helped build. Patricia wore navy. No jewelry except her wedding ring, no makeup except what dignity required. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd run out of patience for excuses. My name is Patricia Bennett, mother of Tyler Bennett, mother-in-law to Nicole Bennett, and as of 7 hours ago, grandmother to Madison Bennett, a child born in a delivery room that became a crime scene. Silence fell like a guillotine. 18 months ago, my son began an affair with Vanessa Cruz, a venture capitalist who presented herself as a business partner. Last night, Ms. Cruz assaulted my daughter-in-law during active labor, endangering 2 lives because my son made promises he never intended to keep. Patricia opened her briefcase, distributing packets to reporters. What my son didn't know, what Ms. Cruz didn't know, is that I've spent 3 weeks documenting everything. The affair is forgivable, perhaps, but $4.3 million in fake consulting fees routing through shell companies to offshore accounts? That's federal embezzlement. Cameras flashed like lightning. The baby Miss Cruz claimed was Tyler's. DNA evidence proves the father is another man entirely, someone in Miami she was seeing throughout her relationship with my son. Gasps echoed through the room. There was something almost powerful in Patricia's control, the way she wielded truth like a blade, each fact cutting deeper than rage ever could. This wasn't emotional outburst. This was surgical precision. Effective immediately, Patricia continued, voice never wavering, I am transferring 51% controlling interest in Bennett Tech Solutions to Nicole Bennett, making her majority shareholder. I am also establishing a $20 million fund for women betrayed during pregnancy, funded by seized embezzled assets and my son's personal accounts. Reporters erupted in questions. Patricia raised one hand for silence. Additionally, I am requesting the board remove Tyler as CEO pending investigation. My son built this company through talent and hard work, but he nearly destroyed it and his family through deception. This is not punishment. This is accountability. Would you have the strength to publicly hold your own child accountable like this? Or would family loyalty make you protect them at any cost? Tell me honestly, where do you draw the line? As Patricia stepped away from the podium, refusing to answer questions, her phone buzzed. Tyler. Mom, please, we need to talk. She typed back one sentence. You can start by finding somewhere else to live. Your keys no longer work at any property I own. 2 miles away, Tyler sat in his Porsche outside the hospital, watching the press conference live on his phone. His face, frozen mid-panic from hospital security footage, looped on every channel. His mother's calm voice narrating his destruction, his empire crumbling in real time, and Nicole recovering with their daughter had just become the richest woman he'd ever betrayed. By noon, Tyler Bennett's net worth had dropped $400 million. By sunset, he'd lost everything except the clothes he was wearing and the shame that wouldn't wash off. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but it burned in one. So did Tyler's empire. Have you ever watched someone powerful become powerless in hours? Seen status evaporate like smoke? Tyler's fall wasn't gradual. It was free fall with no safety net and no sympathy. And the architect of his destruction, the woman who'd sacrificed everything to help him rise, was now ensuring he fell hard enough to remember the landing. By 3 p.m., Tyler's face dominated every screen in Dallas. Not the Forbes cover from 6 months ago, but security footage from Baylor, frozen on his paralyzed expression as Vanessa attacked Nicole. Split screen showed his mother's press conference, her steady voice providing soundtrack to his public execution. CNN ran a countdown of his financial losses in real time. Tyler entered the Bennett Tech boardroom at 2 p.m., expecting support, finding execution. 12 board members, people he'd hired, mentored, made wealthy, sat with folders marked evidence. His CFO spoke first. We've reviewed the consulting contracts flagged by federal investigators. You signed off on every fraudulent payment to Cruz Capital. Whether you knew about the embezzlement is irrelevant. You created the vulnerability. I was building partnerships. You were sleeping with a con artist who stole from your shareholders, his general counsel interrupted. Your mother gave us a choice, remove you voluntarily or watch the SEC do it publicly. Motion to terminate Tyler Bennett as CEO. All in favor? 12 hands rose. Tyler called his mother 18 times. On the 19th, she answered, "Mom, please, stop." Patricia's voice carried no warmth. "Don't beg. Don't explain. Don't insult me by claiming ignorance. It was a mistake. Mistakes are accidents, Tyler. You constructed an alternate reality for 18 months. While Nicole miscarried twice, you were in Miami hotel rooms. While she carried your child through high-risk pregnancy, you promised another woman you'd leave her. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices, consistently, deliberately." "I love you," Tyler whispered, voice breaking. "I know," Patricia replied. "That's why I'm doing this. The man I raised would never endanger his pregnant wife, would never steal, knowingly or through negligence, would never stand frozen while someone attacked the mother of his child." "So either you've changed into someone I don't recognize, or you were always this person and I missed it. Either way, until you become someone worthy of Madison, stay away from my family. She's my daughter. Then act like her father. Prove you deserve the title." Tyler thought about Nicole's hands during labor, reaching for him between contractions, trusting him to anchor her through pain. He'd been texting Vanessa, managing his other life while his wife fought to bring their daughter into the world. The closeness he'd taken for granted, Nicole's trust, her body vulnerable and open to him, felt like artifacts from someone else's marriage now. His phone exploded with notifications, former friends posting statements distancing themselves, business contacts deleting connection requests. Someone created a thread documenting every charitable event where Tyler and Nicole had appeared together, contrasted with hotel receipts showing him in Miami those same nights. Do you believe people can truly change after losing everything? Or are public downfalls just temporary setbacks before they rebuild the same broken pattern? What would it take for you to believe real transformation? A knock on his car window. Tyler had been sitting outside the Highland Park mansion for 2 hours, watching moving trucks load his belongings. A process server handed him papers. Vanessa's arrest warrant, embezzlement, assault, fraud, restraining order, 500 feet from Nicole and Madison, court-mandated psychological evaluation, and divorce papers. Nicole wasn't asking for explanation, reconciliation, or closure. She was erasing him completely. His lawyer called. "The board filed SEC complaints. Federal investigators want to interview you tomorrow, and your mother just put the Highland Park house on the market." Tyler looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Federal agents arrived at Vanessa Cruz's penthouse at dawn, 3 days after the hospital attack. She answered the door, 8 months pregnant, expecting her lawyer. She got handcuffs instead. Vanessa played the victim so convincingly, she almost believed her own lies. Have you ever watched someone who seemed untouchable finally face consequences? That moment justice stops being abstract? Vanessa's arrest wasn't just for assaulting Nicole. It was for 18 months of calculated theft disguised as business. And the baby she'd weaponized? DNA proved it was never Tyler's ammunition to begin with. Vanessa's glass tower penthouse caught sunrise like a prism, 3 million worth of views and furniture bought with stolen money. Federal agents moved through her home with practiced efficiency, photographing luxury she'd never actually earned. Her nursery, decorated in soft blues for a child she'd told Tyler was his, became evidence of fraud. "Ms. Cruz, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and aggravated assault," the lead agent recited, securing handcuffs around her wrists carefully. Pregnant women required gentle handling even in custody. Vanessa's carefully constructed composure crumbled. "Tyler promised me. Tyler Bennett was a mark, Ms. Cruz. A wealthy, distracted mark you played expertly for 18 months. $4.3 million in fraudulent consulting fees. Very sophisticated operation. Almost worked." The agent held up a warrant. "Except his mother is smarter than both of you combined." By noon, the paternity results hit every news cycle. Vanessa's baby belonged to a man in Miami, her married ex-boyfriend she'd rekindled with while sleeping with Tyler. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. She wasn't just the other woman. She was a con artist who'd destroyed multiple families while playing victim. Miami News picked up the story. The real father's wife filing for divorce, his business partners distancing, his own public humiliation beginning. Vanessa remembered the nights Tyler touched her pregnant belly, whispering promises about their future. She'd almost felt guilty lying to him. Almost. But guilt doesn't pay rent on downtown penthouses. Tyler had been her meal ticket, her escape from credit card debt and failed ventures. The baby? Insurance policy. She just needed DNA proof to trap him permanently. Except Patricia Bennett had gotten DNA first. Can you feel sympathy for Vanessa? Or is this justice served? Is she villain, victim, or both? Where does your compassion end? In her holding cell, Vanessa's water broke 3 weeks early, stress-induced labor at 37 weeks. As contractions hit, she realized she'd deliver in county medical facility, her daughter's first moments documented by corrections staff. The empire she tried to steal? Gone. The man she thought she'd trapped? Revealed as her mark. The child she weaponized? Proof of her own deception. And somewhere in Oklahoma, Patricia Bennett received notification of Vanessa's labor and felt nothing except satisfaction that justice was being served. Nicole disappeared. 3 days after Madison's birth, she vanished from Baylor with her daughter, leaving no forwarding address and a security detail Patricia hired. Tyler couldn't find them. That was the point. Nicole built walls around herself and Madison, not from anger, but from the survival instinct that comes after near death. Have you ever had to choose between forgiveness and safety? Between the person you loved and the peace you needed? Every text Tyler sent bounced back undelivered. Every gift returned unopened. Every plea met with legal responses. Because how do you trust someone who proved they'd sacrifice you for their secrets? The house Patricia bought Nicole sat in a quiet suburb 2 hours from Dallas. Spanish tile, walled garden, nursery painted in soft yellows, Nicole chose herself. No Highland Park glamour. No magazine-worthy architecture. Just safety, space, and silence from the media storm. Nicole rocked Madison at 3 a.m., watching her daughter's tiny chest rise and fall, and felt something unexpected. Peace. Not happiness, that felt years away, but peace. Madison weighed 7 pounds now. She nursed every 3 hours. She made tiny sounds that weren't quite words yet. She had Tyler's dark hair, but Nicole's expressions. Madison wouldn't remember the hospital, the screaming, the violence that marked her entrance into the world. Nicole would carry that for both of them. But her daughter would grow up knowing her mother chose protection over convenience, self-respect over reconciliation, safety over second chances. Patricia arrived every Sunday with groceries, staying for dinner, and helping with night feedings. They didn't discuss Tyler much. What was there to say? Instead, they talked about Madison's feeding schedule, Nicole's plan to return to nursing eventually, the foundation Patricia was building in Nicole's name. "You didn't have to transfer the company," Nicole said one evening, Madison asleep against her shoulder. Patricia looked at her granddaughter. "Yes, I did. That company was built on Tyler's talent, but sustained by investors' trust. He violated that trust. You need financial independence to truly choose your future, not be forced into it by necessity. Besides," she smiled sadly, "you're the daughter I actually raised. Tyler became someone else when I wasn't looking." Nicole caught herself sometimes, muscle memory reaching for someone who wasn't there. Her body still remembered Tyler's touch. Years of closeness don't erase overnight. But now those memories felt contaminated, like beautiful photographs someone had ripped in half. She'd trusted him with her body during pregnancy, vulnerable and changing. He'd been texting another woman during her ultrasounds. That betrayal lived in her skin now. Would you cut off all contact with someone who endangered you and your child, or would you give them a chance to explain? What does real healing look like when trust is completely destroyed? The letter arrived via Patricia's lawyer, Tyler's handwriting on paper that seemed wrong in its normalcy. Nicole held it unopened for 3 days, staring at her name in his familiar script. Finally, at midnight, Madison asleep, she opened it. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm going to spend every day becoming someone who might deserve to meet our daughter. I've enrolled in therapy. I got a job teaching coding. I'm moving to Oklahoma to remember who I was before I became who I hate. I'm not asking for a response. I'm just promising this. I will become the father Madison deserves, even if that father never gets to be in her life. Tyler. Nicole folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer marked, maybe someday. But not today. Not this year. Maybe never. Tyler Bennett's fall from billionaire to broke happened in 1 week. His climb back to human would take years. The apartment Tyler rented in rural Oklahoma cost $600 a month, roughly what he used to spend on dinner. Have you ever had to start completely over? No safety net, no reputation, just yourself and the choice to rebuild or give up? Tyler moved to Patricia's hometown with 2 suitcases and the weight of every mistake he'd made. And the only person waiting for him there was the version of himself he'd abandoned 20 years ago. The broke kid from nowhere who used to believe integrity mattered. The Garden Grove apartments off Route 66 looked nothing like Highland Park. Vinyl siding, shared laundry room, neighbors who worked at Walmart and didn't know he used to own penthouses. Tyler's studio smelled like previous tenants and regret. His mother's childhood home was visible from his window, a constant reminder that pride comes before the fall. His new job, teaching basic coding at Tulsa Community College, paid $38,000 a year. After taxes, insurance, and court-mandated therapy 3 times a week, he had about $1,800 monthly. Rent took $600. Food, gas, utilities ate the rest. For the first time since he was 19, Tyler counted dollars before buying groceries. Court orders kept him 500 feet from Nicole and Madison. His visitation rights? None. Not until he completed psychological evaluation, anger management, and a parenting course for absent fathers. His therapist, Dr. Morrison, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't care about his fall from grace. "Why do you think you cheated?" she asked for the 7th week straight. Tyler gave his rehearsed answer. "I was selfish. Weak." "No," the therapist interrupted. "Those are judgments, not explanations. Try actual honesty." Tyler stared at his hands. No Rolex anymore, just bare wrists and calluses from his maintenance job. "I was terrified," he finally whispered. "Of what?" "That Nicole would see I wasn't enough. That I was just some poor kid from Oklahoma pretending to belong in her world. Vanessa saw the billionaire. Nicole saw me. The real me. And that was more terrifying than anything." "So you sabotaged the relationship where you felt most vulnerable," Dr. Morrison observed. "You chose someone who wanted what you had instead of who you are." Tyler's throat tightened. "I threw away a woman who loved me when I had nothing, who would have loved me if I lost everything, because I was too scared to believe I deserved that kind of love." For the first time since the hospital, Tyler cried. Not from self-pity, but from understanding what he'd destroyed. Teaching coding to community college students, kids who looked like he did at 19, hungry and broke and desperate for a way out, Tyler felt something shift. These kids didn't care about his fall from grace. They cared whether he explained algorithms clearly, whether he stayed late to help them debug programs, whether he believed they could succeed. For the first time in years, his value wasn't measured in net worth or headlines. It was measured in whether he showed up consistently and gave a damn. Can people truly change through consequences, Or do they just get better at hiding who they've always been? What does real transformation look like to you? 6 months into his Oklahoma exile, Tyler received a package from Patricia. No note, just photographs. Madison, at 4 months, grinning at something off camera. Madison's first laugh captured mid-giggle. Madison's tiny hand wrapped around Nicole's finger. The daughter he'd never held, growing without him, thriving in his absence. He taped them to his refrigerator and made a promise to the child who didn't know his face. I will become someone worthy of you, even if you never know I existed. Outside, Oklahoma winter settled in cold and unforgiving, teaching him what his mother already knew. Some things have to freeze completely before they can thaw into something new. 1 year after the hospital, 2 people who once shared a bed were living completely separate lives, and only one of them was waiting for the other to come back. Tyler wasn't that person. While Tyler rebuilt himself in Oklahoma dirt, Nicole discovered strength she never knew she possessed, and built an empire from her pain. Have you ever found your purpose in your trauma, turned your worst experience into something that saves others? Nicole didn't just survive Tyler's betrayal, she transformed it into a movement that would change lives across Texas. And the woman who made it all possible? Patricia Bennett. Proving that some mothers protect daughters-in-law more fiercely than their own sons. The Foundation's first clinic opened in South Dallas, in a neighborhood where prenatal care meant choosing between rent and doctor visits. Nicole cut the ribbon with Madison on her hip, 15 months old now and mimicking her mother's wave to the small crowd. The clinic's name, etched in brass above the door, the Madison Bennett Center for Maternal Justice. Tyler would see photos later, through Patricia. He wouldn't recognize the confident woman his wife had become. A young woman approached Nicole after the ceremony, 19 years old and 7 months pregnant, working 3 jobs to make ends meet. My boyfriend left when I told him, she whispered, voice shaking. Said I trapped him on purpose. How did you survive being left? Nicole looked at Madison, then back at the girl who could have been her younger self in different circumstances. I survived by deciding his choices don't define my worth. You're not a trap. You're a mother doing impossible things with impossible strength. And you're not alone anymore, the young woman cried. Nicole held her, 2 strangers connected by the specific betrayal of men who should have been better. Patricia watched the interaction from across the waiting room, heart swelling with complicated emotions. She'd raised Tyler to be better than this, taught him integrity, sacrifice, dignity. He'd forgotten every lesson when it mattered most, but she'd also helped Nicole become this, a woman who transformed trauma into advocacy, pain into purpose, victimhood into power. One child disappointed her beyond measure. The other inspired her beyond words. Some nights, Nicole still woke reaching for someone who wasn't there. Muscle memory of years sharing a bed, bodies knowing each other in the dark. But increasingly, those moments felt like echoes from someone else's life. Her body was reclaiming itself slowly. The pregnancy weight shed not through vanity, but through chasing after Madison. Her skin felt like hers again, not borrowed or violated. She was learning that closeness wasn't just physical, it was trusting yourself enough to be vulnerable. And she wasn't ready for that with anyone yet. Maybe she never would be. That felt like freedom, not loss. The clinics provided free prenatal care, mental health counseling, legal aid for women navigating custody battles with abusive partners. Every service Nicole wished she'd had when her world imploded at 7 months pregnant. Patricia funded everything through the seized embezzlement money and Tyler's former assets, turning his betrayal into other women's safety. There was poetry in that. Dark poetry, but poetry nonetheless. Have you ever turned your deepest pain into purpose? What cause would you champion if you had unlimited resources and personal experience with suffering? Share your vision below. That evening, Patricia showed Nicole a video Tyler had sent, not for Nicole, but for Madison's future. Him teaching at the community college, volunteering at the homeless shelter, speaking at a men's accountability group about his failures and the wreckage he'd caused. Nicole watched silently, Madison asleep against her shoulder, one tiny hand fisted in her mother's shirt. "He's trying," Patricia said carefully, not pushing, just observing. Nicole's response came quiet but firm. "Trying isn't the same as changed, and changed isn't the same as forgiven, and forgiven isn't the same as safe." But for the first time in a year, she didn't delete the video immediately. She saved it to a folder on her phone labeled Maybe. Just maybe. No promises. No timeline. Just the smallest crack in armor built to survive. 2 years can feel like forever when you're the one waiting. Tyler stopped waiting at month 14. Madison's second birthday party happened without the man whose DNA she carried, and for the first time, his absence felt normal instead of tragic. Have you ever marked time by milestones witnessed through photographs? Birthdays celebrated secondhand, first steps you only heard about? Tyler spent 730 days becoming someone his daughter might someday meet, knowing she might never want to. And Nicole? She was building a life where his absence wasn't a wound anymore. It was just reality. Madison's second birthday party filled Nicole's backyard with chaos and joy. Bounce house, bubble machine, tiny humans shrieking with delight over cake-smeared faces. Nicole watched her daughter blow out candles with help, Patricia beside her recording video they'd send Tyler next week. Always a week late. Always through screens, always outside looking in. That was his life now, and he'd accepted it. His name was James, pediatric surgeon at her hospital, divorced father of 2, patient and kind and everything Tyler used to pretend to be. Their 4th date, dinner in downtown Austin, and Nicole felt something she'd thought was dead. Possibility. Not love yet, maybe never love like before, but the possibility that partnership could exist without betrayal underneath. "Can I ask something personal?" James said over dessert. "You can ask," Nicole smiled. "I reserve the right not to answer. Your ex, Madison's father, do you—" He trailed off carefully. Nicole appreciated the caution. "Do I what? Hate him? Sometimes? Miss him? The version I thought he was occasionally? Want him back?" She shook her head. "No. That door closed the moment he chose his phone over my hand during labor." Patricia called Tyler that night, breaking her usual Sunday-only schedule. "Nicole went on a date," she said without preamble. Long silence stretched across the connection. "Good," Tyler finally whispered, meaning it. "She deserves that. She deserves everything I couldn't give her, loyalty, safety, truth." Patricia's voice softened slightly. "You're becoming someone I recognize again, son. Will it be enough? I don't know, but it's real now. That's what matters." Tyler's apartment stayed empty at night. By choice now, not circumstance. Women had shown interest. The college had single mothers in his program, co-workers at the community center, even his landlord's daughter. He'd turned them all down gently. Not from nobility or lingering hope with Nicole, but because he'd finally understood what Dr. Morrison kept saying. You can't build healthy closeness until you're healthy alone. Physical connection had been escape for him, validation he couldn't give himself. Now he was learning to sit with loneliness instead of medicating it with another person's body. The photos Patricia sent showed a toddler with Tyler's eyes and Nicole's smile, building block towers and chasing butterflies and living a complete life without knowing one parent was missing. Sometimes Tyler wondered if Madison was better off this way, growing up with Nicole's strength as her only model, Patricia's wisdom as her foundation. No confused loyalty to a father who'd proven himself unreliable when it mattered most. Do you believe in second chances after betrayal? What would someone need to prove before you'd give them access to your life again? How long is long enough? The letter arrived certified mail, requiring Nicole's signature. Tyler's lawyer, formal language masking desperate hope beneath legalese. Tyler was petitioning for supervised visitation, not custody, not shared parenting. Just 1 hour monthly, with a social worker present to meet his daughter. Nicole stared at the documents for 4 days. Madison asked once, pointing to a photo Patricia had accidentally left visible. "Who's that man?" How do you explain a father to a child who's never needed one? How do you introduce pain when life finally feels safe? Nicole called Patricia at midnight. "If I say yes, I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it so Madison can decide for herself someday whether she wants him in her life." "That's the only reason that matters," Patricia replied. 3 days later, Nicole signed the visitation agreement. 1 hour, once a month, supervised, revocable at any time. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the smallest possible crack in the door, barely wide enough to see through, nowhere near wide enough to walk through. The visitation center smelled like disinfectant and other people's broken families. Tyler Bennett sat at a child-sized table, hands shaking, about to meet his daughter for the first time. She was 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days old. He'd missed every single one of those days. Some moments redefine your entire life. Tyler's happened in a beige room with plastic toys and a daughter who didn't know his name. Have you ever prepared for a conversation that could change everything, where the right words might heal and the wrong ones destroy? After 837 days of absence, Tyler had 60 minutes to prove he'd earned the word father. And Madison? She'd decide with the brutal honesty of a 2-year-old whether this stranger deserved her time. The Family Connection Center sat between a dollar store and a pawn shop on the east side of Austin, the kind of place people only visit when courts mandate it. Tyler arrived 30 minutes early, sitting in his used Honda, rehearsing words that felt inadequate. Nicole pulled up exactly on time, Madison strapped in a car seat that cost more than Tyler's monthly rent. She didn't look at him, just unbuckled their daughter and walked inside like he was invisible. Ms. Chen, the court-appointed supervisor, sat in the corner with a clipboard documenting everything. Nicole settled Madison on the floor with blocks, then positioned herself across the room, close enough to intervene, far enough to not hover. Madison looked at Tyler with brown eyes exactly like Patricia's, assessed him with a toddler's brutal honesty, then returned to her blocks, unimpressed. Tyler didn't move, didn't try to hug her, didn't overwhelm her with "I'm your daddy" declarations she wouldn't understand. He just sat on the floor nearby and started building his own block tower. 10 minutes of silence. Madison building, Tyler building, Nicole watching. Then Madison handed him a blue block. "Here," she said, her first word to him. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. He blinked back hard. "Thank you," he whispered, voice breaking. "Thank you so much." They built in parallel, two strangers finding common language in primary colors and wooden shapes. Madison narrated her building. "This is the house. This is the car. This goes here." Tyler listened like she was revealing the secrets of the universe. Nicole watched her daughter smile at the man who'd nearly destroyed them both. And something inside her shifted. Not forgiveness, not trust, but acknowledgement. Tyler wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to win Madison over with desperation or grand gestures. He was simply present, patient, real. When Madison eventually climbed into his lap to reach a high block, Tyler froze completely, barely breathing, as if holding something sacred he might shatter with the wrong movement. "Careful," Madison instructed, focused on her tower. "It falls easy." "I know," Tyler said quietly, voice thick. "I know it does." There was something raw in watching Tyler with their daughter, vulnerability stripped of pretense. This wasn't the polished billionaire or the cheating husband. This was someone reduced to essential truth, and Nicole hated that she noticed details, the way his hands, once so familiar on her body, now gently steadied Madison's tower. The way he smelled the same, soap and something uniquely him. Memory flickered unwanted. Those same hands on her pregnant belly 3 years ago, promising forever they'd both believed. She looked away, swallowing the ghost of closeness past. "What's your name?" Madison asked suddenly, looking up at Tyler. He glanced at Nicole. Permission to answer honestly? She nodded once, barely. "Tyler," he said. "What's yours?" "Madison Bennett," she announced proudly. "I'm 2. She held up 3 fingers. Tyler gently corrected. 2 is this many." Madison studied her own hands, confused by fingers betraying her. 2 is hard, she concluded. "Yes," Tyler agreed, smiling through tears. 2 is very hard. Would you let your child meet the parent who betrayed you after years of absence? What would you need to see first before allowing that connection? Tell me your boundaries. The 60 minutes ended too fast, and not fast enough. Ms. Chen announced time, and Madison hugged Tyler's leg before running to Nicole. Tyler stood slowly, every muscle aching from sitting on the floor, emotions exhausted. He looked at Nicole for the first time since entering, really looked. "Thank you," he said. Not for the visitation, for Madison, for the chance, for not destroying him so completely that even this became impossible. Nicole nodded once, then took Madison's hand and left. But in her car, hands shaking on the steering wheel while Madison sang to herself in the back seat, Nicole texted Patricia, "Schedule another visit, next month." 3 words that cracked the door open barely an inch. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement that maybe Madison deserved the choice to know her father, even if Nicole never could forgive him. Trust isn't rebuilt with grand gestures. It's rebuilt with showing up on time every single month for 6 months straight. Tyler learned that the hard way. Rebuilding trust after betrayal is like reconstructing a house after fire. You can't just patch the walls and call it repaired. You rebuild from foundation up, brick by brick. Have you ever given someone a second chance and watched them prove they've changed? Or watched them repeat old patterns disguised as progress? Tyler's visits with Madison became monthly ritual. But Nicole wasn't measuring his growth by how he treated their daughter. She was measuring by how he treated himself. Because that's where real change shows first. 6 months of consistent supervised visits. Tyler never late, never canceling, never pushing boundaries. His community college promoted him to department coordinator, managing the coding program for underserved students. The pay increase wasn't much, but it meant stability. It meant trust from people who'd seen him rebuild from nothing. The Bennett Foundation Community Center in South Dallas buzzed with activity. Single mothers learning to code while their children played in on-site childcare, Nicole had fought to fund. Tyler moved through the classroom helping students debug programs, his movements confident but humble, ego stripped away by 2 years of rebuilding from nothing. Nicole watched from the doorway, Madison on her hip. This was the man she'd heard about, but never seen. Tyler without performance, without agenda, without the desperate need to be someone impressive. One student, a woman named Keisha with twin toddlers, asked Tyler during break, "Why do you do this? You don't get paid much for teaching here." Tyler paused, glancing toward where Madison colored at the kids' table. "Because I spent years measuring my worth by bank accounts and losing everything that actually mattered." "These women?" He gestured around the room. "Y'all are building empires on minimum wage and hope and sheer determination. That's the kind of wealth I want to be around now. That's the kind of person I'm trying to become." After class, Nicole approached Tyler in the empty hallway. "That was good," she said carefully. "What you said to Keisha." Tyler looked at her. Really looked, for the first time without desperation clouding his gaze. "I meant it. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, Nicole. I'm not performing redemption hoping you'll take me back. I'm just trying to be the father Madison deserves and the man I should have been 4 years ago. Nicole nodded slowly. I know. That's what scares me. What does? That I actually believe you this time. Standing close in the narrow hallway, Madison between them, literally and figuratively, Nicole felt the ghost of who they'd been. Not the betrayer and betrayed, but the young couple at a charity gala who believed in forever while dancing too close. She remembered his hands on her waist that night, the way he'd whispered that she was the most beautiful woman in the room. She stepped back. Not ready. Maybe never ready. But no longer running at full speed either. Madison started talking about Mr. Tyler at home. Mr. Tyler says I'm good at building. Mr. Tyler has a funny car. Can Mr. Tyler come to my birthday? Each mention was a small knife in Nicole's chest, not because she begrudged the relationship, but because Madison's growing attachment meant decisions would get harder. Right now, visitation was Nicole's choice. Eventually, Madison would have opinions. Children always complicated adult certainties. Patricia watched her son teach coding to women who reminded her of her younger self, broke, determined, refusing to let circumstances define destiny. Tyler had finally learned what she'd tried to teach him 20 years ago. Wealth means nothing if character costs everything. She'd burned down his empire to reveal the man underneath. What emerged wasn't the son she'd raised exactly, but someone better, someone who'd been tested and rebuilt stronger. How long is long enough to prove you've changed? Months? Years? What's your timeline for trusting someone who broke you completely? Share your honest answer. That night, Patricia called Nicole with news. Tyler's lease is up next month. He's considering moving closer to Austin permanently, not to pressure you, but to be more present for Madison's visits and the foundation work. Nicole's heart jumped. What did you tell him? I told him to decide based on his own life, not his hopes. But I'm calling to ask you, if he moved here, would that feel like pressure or possibility? Nicole looked at Madison asleep in her bed, thumb in mouth, completely content. I don't know, she whispered. Ask me again in 6 months, or a year, or never. I genuinely don't know. But the fact she didn't immediately say no meant something had shifted. Something small, something terrifying, something that might eventually be called healing. 3 years after the night that shattered everything, Tyler Bennett stood in Baylor University Medical Center again. Not in a delivery room this time. In an auditorium, speaking to medical staff about what happens when men fail the women depending on them. Patricia's revenge wasn't destruction. It was resurrection through consequence, transformation through loss. Have you ever come full circle and realized the person you are now couldn't coexist with who you used to be? That real growth isn't addition, it's replacement. 3 years after Tyler's empire collapsed, everyone was asking the same question. Did Nicole forgive him? Did he earn his family back? Here's the truth nobody expected. Sometimes the best ending isn't reconciliation. It's everyone becoming who they were supposed to be all along. The foundation gala filled the same ballroom where Tyler and Nicole had celebrated their wedding 4 years ago. Same venue, completely different universe. Nicole stood on stage with James beside her, announcing their engagement and the foundation's expansion to 7 cities across Texas. Tyler sat in the back row, clapping genuinely, Madison beside him coloring in a program. Patricia sat between her past and present, literally bridging worlds that would never fully merge, but had learned to coexist. When Tyler was called to speak about the coding program, he took the microphone with steady hands. 3 years ago, I lost everything because I deserved to lose everything. My mother taught me that love without accountability isn't love, it's enabling. Nicole taught me that healing doesn't require the person who hurt you to be present. And Madison? He looked at his daughter, who waved with her markers. She's teaching me that being a father isn't about rights or redemption. It's about showing up consistently and loving without conditions or expectations. He met Nicole's eyes across the crowded room. I will never stop being grateful that you let me be part of her life, even though I'll never be part of yours the way I once dreamed. That's not tragedy. That's justice. And I'm finally okay with that. After the gala, Nicole approached Tyler as he buckled Madison into Patricia's car for the night. "That was a good speech," she said. "You meant every word." He nodded. "Every single one." Nicole smiled, genuine for the first time in his presence. "I'm glad you found peace with how things are." "Are you happy?" Tyler asked. "Truly happy?" Nicole looked back at James, who was helping Patricia with coats, patient and kind. "Yes, genuinely yes. Are you?" Tyler watched Madison wave through the window. "Getting there. That's enough for me now." There was no kiss, no rekindled flame, no Hollywood ending where betrayal dissolved in passion and reunion. Instead, there was something more valuable than physical connection ever was. Mutual respect between two people who'd destroyed and rebuilt each other, who loved the same child from different addresses, who'd learned that love sometimes means releasing what you wanted to protect what matters more. Tyler didn't reach for Nicole. She didn't look back at him with longing. They both just existed in the same space without pain dominating. That was its own kind of healing. Patricia watched from the venue steps, her son who'd become a man, her daughter-in-law who'd become a force, her granddaughter who'd never know the chaos that marked her birth. She'd burned down an empire to save 3 lives: Tyler's soul, Nicole's safety, Madison's future. And in the ashes, something better grew. Not perfect, not healed completely, but real, sustainable, true. She'd chosen the hardest kind of love, the kind that breaks before it rebuilds, that destroys before it resurrects, that says no, so that yes can eventually mean something. Tyler drove away from the gala alone, windows down despite December cold, Oklahoma plates still on his Honda, though he'd lived in Austin a year now. He passed the Highland Park mansion. New owners, lights glowing warm through windows that used to be his. No longing hit him, just acknowledgement. That was someone else's life. Someone else's emptiness disguised as abundance. He'd lost everything and gained himself. Fair trade. Nicole danced with James at the after-party, Madison spinning between them in a dress that sparkled like her laughter. She caught Patricia's eye across the room and raised her glass in silent toast. They'd survived. More than survived. They'd thrived. Nicole's foundation would help hundreds of women avoid the choice between safety and financial ruin. Patricia's wealth, once used to build Tyler's ego, now built other women's futures. Tyler's betrayal had inadvertently created something that would outlast all of them. So was Patricia's revenge too harsh? Was it justice or cruelty? Here's what I believe. Sometimes love looks like destruction because the person you love has built a life that's killing them. Patricia didn't save her son by protecting him. She saved him by refusing to let consequences be someone else's problem. Nicole didn't heal by staying with someone who endangered her. She healed by choosing herself first, her daughter second, and redemption never. And Tyler? He didn't earn forgiveness. He earned growth. And sometimes that's the better ending. What do you think? Would you destroy your child's empire to save their soul? Would you forgive betrayal that nearly killed you? Your story matters. Share it below. If this moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about the messy truth that families don't always heal together, but they can transform separately into something stronger. Madison fell asleep in Nicole's car on the drive home, sticky with cake and happiness. Nicole carried her inside, tucking her into bed covered with stars she'd painted herself. In Austin, Tyler sat at his kitchen table grading student papers, photos of Madison covering his refrigerator like a gallery of a life he visited but didn't own. Patricia stood on her balcony between both homes, watching city lights and thinking about the difference between mercy and justice, between love that protects and love that prepares. 3 years ago, a family exploded in a hospital delivery room. Tonight, 3 separate but connected lives proved that sometimes the best revenge is everyone becoming their truest self, even if those selves can never go back to being one.